The following video has all dialogue and subtitles turned off to minimize story spoilers. Gameplay shown is from an early build of the Edge of Fate and is subject to change. Hello and welcome back to I Used New Exotics Before You Did, where today we're going over a couple of the weapons that I used during the Edge of Fate preview event that I went to a few weeks ago. I have 3 other videos that I have released today. That is 4 total, so be sure to check out all of my coverage because it is a lot. New Land Beyond is one of the 3 exotic weapons that I had access to, but I've already put out my thoughts on that weapon as it is a pre-order bonus and thus available in the game right now. I did use it somewhat frequently in my gameplay, at least at higher tier difficulties, and I do think it held up pretty well. However, something that I would like to discuss in the future that kind of threw me off on whether or not this was still good was the fact that we are getting a massive number crunch in the Edge of Fate. What this means is that Bungie is taking a lot of the numbers we currently have in the game, I'm focused on power level and damage numbers for this example, and smushing them down all into much smaller numbers. Like our power floor is going from 1900 to 10, starting at level 10. Our damage numbers are going from the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands into double and triple digits with the occasional 4-digit number. Now, percentage-wise, everything is staying roughly the same. Like hand cannons are still going to 1 or 2 shot basic enemies, and pulses are going to 1 burst things, and none of that's changing. But the damage numbers themselves are, which is going to take some getting used to. So part of the reason I couldn't tell if this was still doing well was because I had no frame of reference for these new numbers. But again, that being said, it appears to be still doing pretty well as an endurance weapon. If you stay alive, this weapon will continue to grow in power, and it was performing pretty well in the things that I was doing. Next, we have the Void Scout Rifle 3rd iteration. 3rd iteration has a couple of effects. First, it fires shots in a spread formation, but if you aim the weapon, this spread closes in over a brief period of time, making it so all of the shots line up perfectly with each other. It's kind of like box breathing, where you aim for a brief time to get a benefit. If you hit a target with this charged up shot, it will mark them and dramatically increase the damage that the scout deals to that target for the duration of the mark, which is about 5 seconds. If you kill with this charged up shot, you will go invisible for a brief time. This gun also has a unique reload animation. Instead of reloading a normal magazine into the weapon, you vent heat out of the weapon, which restores individual shots. This weapon also very slowly restores its ammo over time whenever it's not in use. So, the power fantasy here is that you're some kind of long-distance sniper repositioning after every kill, which is preferably charged up so that it hits really hard. And in that respect, it does its job very well. A charged shot on most low-tier red bars was often a kill or very close to it in higher difficulty content, and then I indeed went invisible after getting a kill, allowing myself to reposition or get out of trouble. Charged shots on more healthy targets are basically mandatory because follow-up shots hit for an insane amount of bonus damage, and it feels really good. And in the most ideal of conditions, even with the hefty reload, this thing could pump some damage out, as you're seeing in some of these examples here. However, the most ideal conditions are either being point blank so that you can full auto the weapon, which, as we'll discuss, is not always a good idea, or having a divinity. Although I'm not sure if the target marking interferes with the debuff of divinity just yet. That also assumes that this thing is even viable as a boss damage weapon. I won't count it out for now because I have, again, 0 frame of reference, but I'm very skeptical on the primary ammo DPS meta coming to fruition nowadays. Okay, so what about the negatives? Well, for starters, the reload, or the venting of the heat of the weapon, is painfully slow. It feels terrible, and I would highly recommend a reload speed mod in your arms to help counter this. If you thought watching me reload my Zali's Bane was slow, wait until you vent the heat on this thing. Now, yes, it does slowly restore ammo over time, but that does not really help in the heat of battle too much. Next, using this weapon as a normal scout rifle in your average circumstance is probably one of the worst things that you can do with it. And the further you are from your target, the worse it performs if you're firing full auto. This is because if you don't charge the shot at all, your shots will be fully spread out, which means not everything is going to hit your target if you're firing from what is typically a normal scout rifle range. Not only that, but you are going to rip through your ammo really quickly. So your shots aren't hitting nearly as hard, and you're going to spend more time venting heat out of the weapon, which is already an incredibly long process. This is a weapon to be used in a very planned and methodical manner. Which is to say that in group content, the easier the activity you're doing, the less value you are going to see out of this weapon. The game is simply too fast at lower difficulties for this thing to ever really be able to accomplish much. If you're using it how you're supposed to, then you're probably falling behind your teammates who are just thrashing everything in sight. And if you're using it like a normal scout rifle, you should just pick a normal scout rifle. However, it did prove useful in the much higher difficulties. In this Devil's Lair footage, where the enemies are either like 40 or 50 levels above us, things do not die as easily in this place, which makes those charged, methodical shots considerably more valuable. You'll be heavily damaging low-tier targets, if not outright killing them. The invisibility was really handy in Devil's Lair with how many enemies there are, and its single target damage on bigger enemies where you mark them was producing some of the higher DPS numbers I saw in the 2 days that I was there. So yeah, you gotta really play into the strengths of the weapon, otherwise you are gonna be using a scout rifle that might just be worse than a randomly rolled scout rifle off of the ground. When used in ideal conditions, it can be pretty good to outright really good in terms of damage output, although again, with all of the stat crunches and the number crunches happening in the game, it's kind of tough to contextualize how good it is without more points of comparison. For what it's worth, I did some testing in the shooting range versus some machine guns, and the scout rifle was blowing them out of the water at close range. Although I have been told that the shooting range might still have some issues with damage numbers, and myself and a couple of other people found machine guns to be quite lacking in higher difficulty content, so there might be something going on there as well. Remember, this is not the final build of the expansion. Stuff is subject to change, and stuff is subject to being fixed. Anyway, moving on to the Graviton Spike, a hybrid arc stasis hand cannon. The point of this weapon is to overcharge the opposite element by landing precision hits and kills. So, if you're on the arc mode, you hit crits until the weapon is fully charged for stasis. Then it'll beep at you, you hold reload to switch to stasis, and now you're overcharged on stasis until you drain your stasis meter, which it'll drain a third of its energy every crit, so ideally you're hitting 3 boosted shots. The stasis boosted shots hit harder and spawn stasis crystals to the sides of your target. Then, after 3 crits and or kills with the stasis side of the gun will overcharge to the arc side. It's going to beep at you, you switch it, and now your next crits will call down a bolt of lightning on the target. So the whole point is to switch constantly back and forth, arc, stasis, arc, stasis, arc, stasis, triggering the boosted effects over and over again. This is a craftable exotic that you will get later in the expansion, and it comes with 4 perks. I think they were Rapid Hit, Subsistence, a new perk that boosts your gun stats based on the element of it that isn't Elemental Capacitor, and then what I think a lot of people will end up using, which is Temporal Alignment. This boosts the damage of the weapon when you overcharge both sides, and it'll refresh itself, so this should be on basically all of the time if you're using the weapon as it is designed to be used. It even gives you 3 shots in the mag when you switch modes, although I think you need to be overcharged for the ammo. I don't actually remember. I think this hand cannon is pretty fun, although the swapping back and forth can get a little tiresome. Plus you have the downtime between the swaps. I think the main issue that I had with this weapon was that I had 0 build synergy with this weapon whatsoever. I was on Solar Titan trying out the new exotic gloves. The Warlock exotic is also for Solar or Prismatic. Hunter is Strand. The artifact this season is Solar, Strand, and Stasis themed. So at least you have half of the weapon in the artifact. Also, the weapon doesn't specifically say if the lightning bolts from the arc overcharge are technically bolt charge lightning strikes or if they're just nondescript lightning strikes, but they look and sound the exact same. So I hope there is some synergy there on the arc side whenever we have some arc stuff going on. You also have some potential synergy with the perk Elemental Honing, which encourages you to use every element to get a damage buff. You got a 2-for-1 in here, so that's kind of nice. But my experience with the weapon was pure. No build crafting, not much artifact stuff, and despite all that, I still found the weapon pretty fun to use. It is really satisfying, triggering all of these powerful effects back to back. The zap, zap, zap of 3 lightning bolts, which are potentially destroying the stasis crystals you set up not 2 seconds ago. It's nice. Now, how practical or how viable is this weapon going to be? Hard to tell. I'm not too confident that it'll be some sort of meta-defining weapon based on a short time with the gun, but I do think it is at least a fun novelty. My testing in the shooting range wasn't super extensive, so I don't want to lean on those numbers too heavily at all. Those are the 3 weapons, and kind of 2 weapons, that I got to play with during my time at Bungie. I intentionally do not look at the collections tab at these events, so I don't know what else is coming, but Bungie did say that, quote, "These are the exotics we are showing today," end quote, which usually means it's not everything that's coming. I'm sure there's going to be a raid exotic, so like maybe 1 or 2 more things at the least. If you enjoyed this video, why don't you go check out the exotic armor video next that I launched alongside this one, or maybe the portal update or the stats update videos. I got a lot. Go watch it. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you next time.